All right, we're going to go on and get started here in about 60 seconds. This is the Ask Me Anything about mobile digital billboards. And if you have any questions, go on ahead and get those prepared and put those in the comments. Let's go on ahead and get started. My name is Jerry Teeter, and I am the founder and CEO here at Legion LED Trucks. And I get calls all the time from people that are interested in mobile digital billboard trucks and just have a lot of questions. And so I wanted to just take an opportunity here to answer some of the, more general questions. If you have questions and you're watching this, go on ahead and submit those, and I will do my best to get through those. But before we get started, I wanted to just kind of talk a little bit about this industry and what we're doing, and hopefully that'll spark a few of these questions. And so, a little bit about me and my history. I got into this business back in 2014 when there were only just a small handful of these trucks in the entire country. Roughly around 2 dozen trucks, and it was the Wild West. It was brand new when we started working with a lot of the larger brands. That it was early on in them utilizing this media. And over the last 12, 13 years, we've worked with some of the biggest brands that you recognize all over the country. And we've learned a lot of lessons. I've done almost every type of model that you can do with these trucks. I've tried all kinds of different stuff. I've made a lot of money and I've lost a lot of money. And, we have the scars to prove it. On my first truck that I bought, I ended up losing $100,000 on that truck 1 year after I bought it because, I didn't know what I didn't know, and I didn't know what to look for and how to purchase it properly, and way overpaid for it. So when it came time to sell it, I didn't feel right, doing to someone else what was done to me, and so pretty much ended up just selling it for what the chassis was worth. The LED body really had no value at that point, and so I've learned a lot of very, very hard lessons in this. Now this Q&A, who this is for is really for those individuals that are looking to start a mobile digital billboard business. For decades, this has been a very high barrier to entry industry to get into. It's built that way on purpose. If you've ever heard the word oligopoly, it's a combination of a monopoly controlled by a bunch of oligarchs. And if you look at the top three companies, it's largely controlled by three major players, and then you have a bunch of independents kind of fighting over the scraps there. And so it's much like the taxi industry was for decades. The billboard industry is very tightly controlled, and it's very hard to get into. And so mobile digital billboards, because they're not part of the land-based regulations that traditional billboards are, it makes that barrier to entry much lower. And so any entrepreneur like you and me can get into this business. You can own a media company and actually serve your local community in that way. And so for entrepreneurs that are looking to start a mobile billboard business, and then business owners who want to take control of their advertising and stop paying rent for billboard advertising, you can now own your own billboards. And so again, first time in history that you've really been able to do that. And so we're here to help you just take control of your marketing assets and your marketing business, and be able to really get your message seen exactly where you want it to be seen, when you want it to be seen. And so when I'm talking to people, this is their first kind of exposure to billboards. For mobile digital billboards, there's really four cornerstones that I've identified that you really need in order to be successful in this business. You need a high quality truck. that's not going to break down on you, that you can trust to be operational when you need it and when you have contracts to serve. You need a good model. That's how you operate the business. So, are you doing exclusive, which is one advertiser on the truck at a time, or are you doing more of a shared route where you put multiple people on and drive a specific route? That's your model. You need a good system within that model to operate that model. And so, um, you can't just buy the truck and expect to show up at a business and say advertise on this truck and expect them to throw money at you. That's one of the giant myths of this industry. And so you have to have a on purpose specific system to operate that model, so customers know exactly what they're getting and you know exactly what to deliver. And then the fourth piece that you need is a good salesperson, someone that can actually sell media. You can have a great truck, you can have the right model, and you can have a great system, but if you don't have a competent salesperson to go out and sell it, you're going to struggle. And so that's a very key piece that you need. In most cases, that's going to be the entrepreneur or the business owner. And so, my recommendation is that you take on that role and then hire someone to drive the truck. And so, that's just kind of some real high level information that, kind of get you started and hopefully get your ideas running. And so, I've got a couple questions here that were already submitted. And so let's go ahead and get started with those. So the first question is, what is a mobile digital billboard? And so, just functionally, it's a group of LED panels that are on a mobile vehicle controlled by either a computer or a media player or, some ad source to display the content on the screens. And so your typical billboard truck is going to have the LED screens. You're going to have a generator or some type of a power source. You're going to have the truck chassis. And those are going to be the three main components of an LED truck. And then within that, you've got other equipment like, your media source, which is either a computer or a media player, and audio equipment if you're going to have sound on it, and, just some other basic equipment. So within that, though, I will say there's a really wide range of quality. And so an LED truck is not the same. All LED trucks are not the same. A lot of LED trucks are built they start as box delivery trucks that people will take and cut up the sides and then put their screens in. I consider that a low quality amateur build because a box delivery truck is not meant to be an LED truck. The way they're built, they're not made to handle the weight of the screens out on the outer perimeter of the floor framing there. They just don't look as good. They're not as finished. They're, for a whole host of reasons, a box delivery truck, in my opinion, is not the greatest way to build a LED truck. You've got trucks that come complete from China. There's a few people out there in this industry that are selling those Chinese trucks. I'll be honest with you. Again, in my opinion, and from working on some of these, they're very, very low quality. They tend to be a lot cheaper, but the parts and components and the fabrication is very substandard, and they don't last very long as far as longevity. And so don't recommend those at all. And then the third category of trucks you have are ground up builds. And so Legion LED Trucks is one of just a very small handful of companies that actually builds the LED trucks from scratch. We start with just a raw cutaway chassis, and then we build the body around it and then install the screens. So everything in that truck is purpose built, purpose made. And so that's kind of the difference in the various types of trucks. I'll also touch on the screens. Just like in the trucks, there's a very wide quality difference, wide range of quality in LED screens. When it comes down to the internal components that make up those screens, you have your LED lamps themselves, the diodes, you have the chips, you have the wiring that connects all those pieces together on the PCB board. And all three of those things play a very important role in the quality of your screen. And so the cheaper the screen, the cheaper the components that go into that, and the less longevity you'll get on that screen. And so your low grade, cheaper screens will typically, in this setting, lasts maybe 2 to 4 years. Your mid-range screens will last usually anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and then your better screens will typically last 5 to 10 years. And so it's with that being one of the most expensive components of the truck, it is very important to get a high quality screen and not sacrifice quality, just have a little bit cheaper truck on the front end. And so that's just kind of my recommendation on that. All right, the next question is, how do the LED billboard trucks actually work? And so that's a question I get a lot as far as people want to know, like, how do they get their content on the screens? And so that's going to be done one of two ways. You're going to have some type of a computer in the truck that has software on it that you just load your images into. They're just standard JPEG images that you can create on Canva or Photoshop, or any graphical software can create your images, and then you just save them as JPEGs, and they go on into the software, and the software connected to the or the computer connected to the screen can display those images. There's also media players that most of those end up being cloud-based, and so that's what we utilize in our trucks, both a computer and a cloud-based player, where anywhere you have an internet connection, you can log in, you can schedule your artwork at specific times and different playlists, and then send it out to that player, and the player will manage the content then of when it goes out onto the screen. And so that's going to be a more advanced type of truck. A lot of your basic trucks out there will simply just have a single input source, which will be that local computer, which is usually a laptop that's up in the cab of the truck or back in the behind the body of the truck. And so it's actually really simple. It's not something that should really worry you if that's one of your concerns. And again, the more advanced trucks are going to give you more options, with different inputs. So with the Legion trucks, we have multiple inputs that you can put, like any HDMI device. So a Fire Stick, an Apple TV, computers. Just again, anything with an HDMI source you can plug in and display out onto the truck screen. And so that's kind of how they work functionally. Another one of the questions I get a lot is, are mobile digital billboards legal? And so I'm going to say that's going to depend on who you ask. Broadly, yes, they're perfectly legal in almost every market. There are a small handful of markets where mobile billboards are banned in general. It has nothing to do with the digital aspect of it. They just completely ban mobile billboards. And so one example would be Austin, Texas. Yuma, Arizona, oddly enough, is a market that has that. I believe the state of Maine has a mobile billboard ban, but again, we're talking less than half a dozen markets that I'm aware of that have that type of ban. Beyond that, there really isn't any regulation, because mobile digital billboards are controlled by US DOT, and there really hasn't been any regulation pop up on these yet. There's a handful of instances where local law enforcement will try to attach some old obscure law that's on their books to the trucks, but again, to my knowledge, none of those have ever held up in court. And so as far as running them, very few jurisdictions that would limit these. And so my advice is just to go into your local zoning. Almost every city has their zoning regulations online, and just do a search within their sign code, find the sign code section, and search for things such as mobile billboards, portable signs, mobile signs, and just some of those different keywords. And if you're not pulling up anything, then chances are there's nothing to worry about there. The final piece I'd say on that is, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving legal advice here. If you really want to know the real answer, find an attorney that can give you a legal opinion. And then from there, if you do have any issues, they can already be aware of the laws and help you out on that. Next question is, how much does an LED billboard truck cost? And this is a very broad question. There's so much that, just like a vehicle, there's so much that goes into the pricing of an LED truck. So broadly, for a used truck, you're going to see them as low as, I've seen them as low as 40 or 50,000 on the really, really low end. all the way up to 200 to 220,000 for used ones, depending on their size and their screen pitch and the miles on the truck, and just so many different options there. Um, New trucks, again, will range. I've seen them as low as 160 to 170, all the way up to 300 plus. And again, that's going to be the difference between the quality of the construction, the size of the screens, the chassis that's on it, all the other equipment that's in there. And then some of it, frankly, is just reputation of the company that's selling it can play into that. And so, for example, a new Legion 714 in a 3.9 pitch is running 260,000 currently as of the recording of this video. I've seen, a lot of our competitors out there will run typically in the 180 to 220 range. And so that's just kind of the average there. As far as the used trucks go, what I would say is like a $50,000 to $60,000 LED truck would be the equivalent of buying, say, like a $3,000 or $4,000 vehicle. It's still probably operating. It's still, you can go out and use it, but the expectation on that level of truck should be it's going to have cosmetic defects. The chassis is probably going to be very high miles, probably not in the best shape, and the screens are probably not going to be in great shape either. Even though they are working and functional, they're probably going to be towards the end of their life. And so on that type of truck, you should expect to do some type of a rescreen and major work within a very, 12 to 18 months or even sooner of buying the truck. And so just calculate those costs into that truck if that's what you're looking to spend. What I recommend if you're going to buy a used truck is to get a truck in the $100,000 to $160,000 range. You can usually get pretty decent quality used LED trucks that still have a lot of life left in them, and so that would be a good price range that you can look into. And again, if you're looking for just trying to see what you can get at different price points, if you go to ledtrucks.com, we do carry a pretty decent inventory of both used trucks, and then we've got brand new trucks that are built and ready to go. So if you wanted to see them side by side and kind of see what the differences are and what you're getting for the money, give me a call and I can help you navigate that and see what's best for your business. Okay, so next question is the mobile digital billboard business profitable? And I actually just did a newsletter article about this on Digital Display Insider that just came out. That's digitaldisplayinsider.com. You can go read that full article, but the short answer is yes. If it's done properly with the right model, a good truck, and a system behind that, and then you have a good salesperson, if you have those four cornerstones in place, then yes, it can be a very profitable business. If you get into this and you're just buying the truck with really no experience in advertising or no experience with LED equipment, you're going to just create your entire business from the ground up and figure everything out from scratch. I can tell you it's going to be a long road, and I would expect minimum of 2 to 4 years to really start seeing some traction and figuring things out, because I can promise you all the assumptions you're making now most of them are going to be wrong. And so that's the pathway that I went through figuring this out, because when I got into this business, there wasn't information on the internet. There wasn't people who had really done it before us. And so we were really figuring things out as we went. We were trying to build the plane as we were trying to get it off the ground. And just in my business, we made mistakes that cost us multiple six figures. And, over the course of my tenure doing this, those mistakes are probably into the seven figures at this point. And so you're going to pay to learn, whether you do it on your own or you pay someone to learn the business up front and do it a lot sooner without the mistakes. So either way, it's going to cost you a lot of money. But my advice is find someone who's done it before, pay them for their advice, and save yourself years of heartache and get to that profitability a lot sooner. Once you get to the profitability and you have a good model that's doing well, then it can be very profitable. Just like most businesses out there, I will say the most profitable businesses are those that have some form of monthly recurring revenue. And so that is a big fundamental difference between the exclusive model and the shared model. The shared model does offer that monthly recurring revenue model, versus the exclusive is a lot harder to get that. And so that should be, at least in your when you're thinking about what to do, that should be in your consideration. Okay, so that kind of leads into this next question. How do you start a mobile digital billboard business? The first thing obviously is you need a truck. And so once you have that truck and you're kind of ready to go, um, you need that model and you need the system. So you first need to decide, are you going to focus on exclusive contracts where you're just getting one client on the truck at a time, selling it by the day or the week or the month? And then, or if you want to go over and get multiple people on at a lower price point, but you spread out that risk and you have more people on paying you a monthly rate versus a contract rate. That's your model. So you got to make that decision, either exclusive or shared. Once you have that decision made, then you got to figure out your system. What routes are you going to run? What days? What are you offering your customer? If I'm your customer saying, what do I get for my money? You need to be able to articulate that in a way that shows them that what they're paying you is worth the value they're receiving. And that tends to be the hardest part. And that's where most operators get tripped up the most, because, that's where you just start throwing, stuff against the wall to kind of see what sticks. And that's what can take, years really to figure that out on your own. Now, for those of you that don't want to go through that pain of trial and error, trying to figure out what works, we do offer a done-for-you system that's ready to go. It's a franchise-level system called the Total 360 model, and that is a local shared model that does incorporate some exclusives into it, but it's a very specific system that's got a full operational manual, and that's something that if you want to reach out to me, I can tell you more about. That would be for the type of person who wants to buy the truck, buy the system, so they can start day one selling what they're doing, versus starting day one figuring out what the next steps are. And so you're buying speed, and you're buying the cost of the system is a fraction of the cost of what you're going to pay over time in learning expenses. So that's available to the Total 360 system, available at Legion LED Trucks. Okay. This is another really common one. How much can I charge for a mobile billboard advertising? In the exclusive world, I would say the average going rate across operators out there is in that $125 to $150 an hour range, all the way up to, some guys might be getting $200 an hour in that world. The anywhere from $1,000 to $1,600 a day is that average day rate. It's actually a little bit lower than that in the wholesale world. So if you're an operator working for another operator or for an agency or a broker, then they're going to expect you to be on the lower end of that range, maybe even a little bit less than that. But from a retail standpoint, that $1,200 to $1,600 a day is pretty well the average day rate on those trucks. In terms of the shared model, boy, that just all depends on what system and you set up to charge. I see anything from $200 a month to thousands of dollars a month. And so, and that's part of, like, in our Total 360, I was just mentioning, that's what you get in that. We give you all the packages and the price levels and everything, so you don't have to figure any of that out. If you're not going to do that type of system, then you do got to figure those things out. You got to figure out, how often you're going to run the truck and where at and how many spots you're going to have and how long each spot will dwell on the screen. And so from there, you can back into how much you're going to charge. What you're charging needs to be justified by the value that the customer is getting in return. And so there's just a lot to figure out there. And so, I would say in our Total 360 model, if you're good at sales and you execute the system well, then your truck should be able to do anywhere from, I would say, $20,000 a month on the low end, all the way up to $40,000 to $45,000 a month. And so a lot of nuances in there and a lot of different variables that can have an effect on that. But what I will say too, just in my experience talking to operators, As with most of those in the exclusive world, I'd say the average operator is generating between, you know, $80 to $100,000 a month, a year on the low end, up to 130 to 150 per truck. And so hopefully that can kind of give you some rough ranges of what they can make. With this newsletter I mentioned at the beginning of this question, if you go to there is a link in there. We developed a revenue calculator that you can plug in a bunch of different variables and then kind of see from a monthly rate how much the truck will you'll have in expenses and revenue. So I encourage you to go check that out. DigitalDisplayInsider.com. It's issue number 39 of that just came out here January of 2026. Okay, and let's see. This looks like kind of the last one. How many advertisers can one truck handle? So I'm going to say from a hardware standpoint, it's really unlimited. What it really boils down to is what can you offer where the customer is still getting value. And so, if you look at the traditional billboard industry, they're typically putting anywhere from 6 to 12 clients on the screen in the rotation at a time. I've seen some people trying to do this local model where they're putting 20, 30, 40 customers in a rotation and then charging a lot less money per customer. And so that comes down to part of what you're trying to figure out and what decisions you're making in your system. But functionally, I mean, it can be whatever number you want. If you want to put 100 people in a rotation, it can handle that. And so it's more, that's more of a system question versus a hardware question. So it looks like that's all the questions I got for this session. And so I'll try to continue to do these here periodically, but I do appreciate you joining me. And if you're watching this replay and have a specific question, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My email address is jerry@ledtrucks.com. If you go to ledtrucks.com, the phone number on there, it comes straight to me. And so if you have any questions about the trucks, the hardware, the model, feel free to call me and ask me. I'm a pretty open book on this. Speaking of books, I wrote a book earlier this year. Well, we published last year. Called How to Start a Mobile Digital Billboard Business Without Losing $100,000. And that book is based on my experience, and it does touch on a lot of these questions that I answered here today. And so you can buy that book on Amazon. I believe it's on there for $29.95. Or if you want to go to my website, you can get the book for free. You just pay shipping and handling, $9.95. And it's my free gift to you. But I highly recommend it. If you're in the research phase at all, that's the best $10 you'll spend. I promise, hands down, you can get that. If you want to go into like a deeper conversation, you're ready to get into this business, but you're just trying to figure out, what are those, what are those barriers that's kind of keeping you? I do offer a 1-hour consultation call, and that can be found also at our website at ledtrucks.com. Just scroll to the bottom. There's a place there you can book a call with me. And then the last thing we're offering is February 27th, I believe. Let me double check this. February 26th and 27th. I'm offering what we call a discovery day. And so again, if you're at that point to where you're pretty well bought in, you're ready to do this business, but you just want to, I guess, feel a little better about your purchase and your decision, what you're going to be doing. Maybe you haven't seen an LED truck in person yet, or you haven't had that opportunity to really put your hands on the physical trucks. We offer these discovery days that are modeled similar to a franchise discovery day, where you can come into Omaha. We're going to do a full day of training. We've got a brand new LED truck that we've built, along with some of the used trucks that we've purchased from different operators around the country. So you can actually see side by side what these trucks what the differences are. You can see them working in person. We'll run some different demos on them. And it's just a really great way it's like a cheap insurance policy before you make that decision of what you're going to do. And so our next discovery day is the 26th and 27th of February. You can get more information on that by going to ledtrucks.com/discovery day, ledtrucks.com/discovery day. So thank you again for watching this video, and feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Talk to you soon.